Hi everyone, I'm Hayley. I'm always in the craft room and I have got my 2025 off to a great year sewing wise, just running with all that new year energy and getting things done. So let's get straight in with the first project I tackled, which was mending. So this is the bed linen off our bed and we have decorative Oxford pillowcases, which had started to fail here. So I have a feeling it's kind of a design flaw inherent in the Oxford style of pillowcase. But of course, this is always going to be a really weak point. And my husband was changing the bed linen slightly aggressively, made a little rip in the stitches. So what I did was I just went over it with stitch number 2 on my Faff Admire, which is a reinforced stitch. It's kind of tricky to get the hang of, but it goes backwards and forwards. It goes like forwards, 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 backwards, backwards, forwards, 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 backwards, backwards, backwards. So that every stitch is done 2 or 3 times and it just makes it really secure. It will probably be easier to see on the back, and I did do it on both sides because I thought if one has failed, the other will be next. So yeah, got that done. Felt rather pleased with myself because that is the kind of job that often gets kind of left in a pile and I never get round to. So I thought we'd start the new year off strong. Now, whilst I was doing that, I remembered another bed linen project that I needed to get done, which was for my girls. So, settle in for story time. We bought mattresses for our girls, like children's beds, at IKEA. They're a great system where it gets longer as they grow and you zip on more bits onto the mattress. Love them. Whilst we were there, we bought duvets, but I didn't like any of the duvet covers because, I'm fussy. I have to make my life hard. Didn't like them. Ended up buying duvet covers, which I did like, at Dunelm. Put duvets and covers, sent the children to bed, and then spent the next 6 weeks of my life shaking out their duvets constantly. Mama, mama, my duvet's all bunched up. And after this has been going on for a while, I just thought, what is wrong with this? Some of you who have bought bedding at IKEA before will know exactly what's wrong. And that is that the duvet was a different size to the duvet cover. So the duvet is bigger than the duvet covers for a standard, like British single bed. So everything was getting all bunched up and it was super annoying. And obviously I couldn't take anything back because we'd already used them. So I had to come up with a new solution. So here is their bed linen. It's actually, I was super pleased in the end with the print that I did find at Dunelm. On one side, it's a lovely kind of pastel floral. And on the other side, it's unicorns. Very happy with it. What I did to amend the situation is one of the long side seams, I just chopped it off with my sewing scissors. And then I added on a panel of fabric on the double to widen the duvet by that much down the whole length. So as you can see, it's not the same fabric, but I really think it looks fine. It's similar, isn't it? This is actually leftovers from their cot duvets, which again I made because I just couldn't find anything that I liked in the shops. So I thought that was not a problem at all. I had done one of them as a test to make sure that the theory in my head would be successful. I'd done that months ago. It was successful. And yet I was still shaking out duvets every night. We have 4 of these covers, one for each bed, one in the wash. Anyway, once I knew the theory worked, I got to it, and all I did was overlock down the long bits with it inside out, right sides together, and then I just sewed across the top and bottom and then overlocked. So it's not the neatest work I've ever done. However, I should hopefully no longer spend my evenings shaking out duvets. And lesson learnt, don't assume, check the sizing before I buy. with all that done, I thought, oh, it's time to do a project for myself, something fun, a garment. But it was a weeknight evening. I'd had a really busy time at work, and the next project that I'm ready to get on with is my half zip sweater dress. And pretty much the first step in that, it is all cut out and ready to go, but pretty much the first step is the zip. And it could not be more front and center, could it? It's literally, oh, sorry, it's literally right there. And I don't love zips ever, but when I'm tired, I just thought that is an absolute recipe for disaster. So I decided not to start on that, and I thought instead I'd do a nice, easy Idlewild t-shirt by Itch to Stitch. I've made this pattern loads of times before. I absolutely love it, and I had a lovely soft French terry earmarked for it. It's grey and cream stripe, and you can see the French terry texture there. Now, I did think this isn't as stretchy as many a jersey I've used for previous Idlewilds, so I added a centimetre onto each side seam so that I could stripe match. What I actually did, when I lay things on the fold with stripes, it always takes me an absolute age to make sure that all the stripes are correct. So what I did in this case was I drew around the pattern piece in blue chalk, marked centre front, flipped it, drew around it again so I could make sure that the stripes were all straight, and that, for example, I had a grey stripe coming right to the point of each side seam. And you can see along there, when I cut it out, I just added a centimetre to each side seam. So I've got an extra 4 around, just in case this French terry is not that stretchy. And I do measure a size small in this pattern, but there is negative ease at the bust, which, yeah, I just wanted to be sure that I didn't make it uncomfortably tight. So that's what I did with that. The fabric was super wide. Love that. So I got a front bodice, a back bodice, and one sleeve out of a single width of fabric. Love it. So underneath the next sleeve, underneath the first sleeve, I did the next sleeve. And then I had this huge bit left, which was as long as a sleeve and as wide as a front bodice and a back bodice. So I looked at that and thought, I can get a top out of that, either a tank top or basically anything that doesn't have sleeves. So I had a little think about knit patterns in my stash that don't have sleeves, and I settled on the Kirsten t-shirt by Maria Denmark. Back in the day, this was free if you signed up for her newsletter. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but it is a great pattern. I love it, so much so that I'd kind of retired it because I had so many versions. Literally, it was my go-to summer t-shirt pattern for years because I don't like a set-in sleeve on a summer t-shirt because I find them too hot. I like a bit of airflow under the arms. So I made this over and over. I had tried another pattern, which was New Look 6216. I got free with a magazine. Very similar, didn't like it at all, which is interesting because the line drawings look really similar, but small differences in drafting do make huge differences to finished garments, don't they? So the Maria Denmark one was my preference. I went and got the pattern out because I've tidied up the pattern cupboard and it was easy to go and grab it. I laid it on my pieces. It fitted just, and I mean just. The remnant that I had, I laid it like that, meeting in the middle, and then put each one on the fold. And I had to jiggle exactly where they met in the middle to the centimetre to get both of the cut-on sleeves points touching. It was like literally that close. So I was so pleased with myself that I got it on there, and I thought, why dilly-dally? Like, why fold this fabric up, put it away and do it another time? I'll just cut it out now. Pride comes before a fall, eh? Because when I was finished with all that, this is what I had left. Like scraps. Teeny tiny. Useless scraps. Now, don't get me wrong, I saved them because I test my overlocking settings on them, etc. But yeah, not much left. At which point I started thinking about assembling these 2 t-shirts I've now cut out, and I thought what I'll do is I'll sew one shoulder seam, leave the other one open, put the neckbands in. Didn't cut a neckband. Did not cut a single neckband for 2 t-shirts. Even the largest of these remnants, given that you need the stretch to go in a certain way as well, are no help to me. Don't worry, I have ideas. So, the Maria Denmark pattern actually suggests that you just turn and stitch the neckline. I will not be doing that because I did that on my early versions and it doesn't wear and wash well. It just, over time, loses its shape and kind of bags out. So I definitely will be adding a neckband. What I've decided to do is make up the t-shirts as they are. Do both side seams, both shoulder seams, both side seams, try them on. If they've got a lot of length, I could cut a strip from around the bottom where the stretch will be going in the right direction for either 1 or 2 neckbands, depending on what I have available. That is probably my preference, and there's a decent chance it will work. I'm just looking at how long I made this. Yeah, there's a good possibility I've got 1 or 2 stripes there I can sacrifice. If that is not the case, I've already been in the scrap drawer and pulled out this pile, which is scraps of whites and creams and ivory jersey fabrics that I always save for, well, for neckbands, not for when I forget to cut a neckband, but for when I want a contrast neckband. And with stripes, I do quite like a contrast neckband. I love a contrast neckband anyway, to be fair. So look, I'm going to be able to sort it, but yeah, just one more lesson in why I shouldn't cut out late at night. But sometimes when it's the only time you've got to sew and you've got nothing there and ready to just get into the machine, you've got to cut out, haven't you? So it is what it is. Anyway, I didn't actually get the chance to put anything through the machine, but they are all ready. Whilst I'm threaded white, I have a repair to make. This is a little t-shirt I made for one of my girls to match one of my t-shirts. You might recognise the fabric. In fact, this might well be New Look 6216, which I don't love. Anyway, when I made this up, I wasn't sure if they'd ever wear it because they had seen that I had some fabric left and asked me, which was so cute. And the idea of twinning, I love it. So I made it up, but I wasn't convinced they were going to wear it. So when it came time to hem it, I just did a zigzag around the bottom, which is honestly, it's fine for kids' clothing, isn't it? It's fine for any clothing. I should have done the zigzag that does 3 stitches in each leg of the zigzag because that does have a lot more stretch, because I know my kids and they're rough on clothes. They take them off, they put them on, they're constantly changing into dressing up clothes and tugging on each other. So of course the hem has failed. That said, it's probably lasted 6 months and I didn't want to spend an awful lot of time doing a great job on this because I wasn't sure if they were going to wear it. So it has served its purpose well. I'm just going to quickly rehem it on the cover stitch. Now I know they like it and it still fits perfectly. So I'll rehem it on the cover stitch when it is threaded white to finish these 2 t-shirts. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is also to do with the kids and my iron, which I know sounds curious, but if you have small children in your life, kids or grandkids, you may recognise these things. They're ironing beads. So they're little plastic beads that you lay out in a pattern and then you iron them, or in our case, you ask a grown-up to iron them until they melt together to form these. You can make keychains from them. My girls just use them as like pretty things to decorate their room. They got a big set for Christmas. So I spent a good portion of the Christmas holidays ironing these bead things with my cordless iron. So it charges electromagnetically when it's on the stand and then you can just use it. I love this thing. It is fantastic for ironing seams. You know where you lay everything on the ironing board absolutely just so you can get a good press on a seam, and then the cord of your iron knocks it, and then you have to put it down and rearrange the fabric again. Not with this. I will say it's not great for interfacing because obviously it only has power when it's on the stand. So if you're trying to fuse interfacing for 10 seconds at a time, it constantly beeps and needs to be recharged to maintain temperature. So I always use my corded iron for fusing interfacing, just so it's got constant power, maintains a high temperature. I'm really fussy about my fusing. It's got to be done right. Anyway, what I'm getting at, get on with it, Hayley, is that this iron has been used constantly to iron these things. And as they melt, I mean, they're plastic. And you do put a piece of like baking paper in between it and the iron, but there is a kind of residue that goes onto the baking paper. Then the paper gets put to one side. And I was thinking that the next time someone, not necessarily me, goes to iron one of these, the paper probably gets flipped over. And so now I feel like the bottom of this is covered in some kind of horrible plasticky residue. And I don't want it to touch my sewing projects. So, long story short, does anyone have any recommendations for cleaning the base plate of an iron that doesn't involve going out and buying iron cleaner? Because I always just think things like that are just marketing. Hot soapy water, rubbing alcohol, bit of cream cleaner. What do you use to clean your iron that is not an iron cleaner? Am I overthinking it and it's fine? Until I hear back from you, I'm just using my corded one because, yeah, we put a lot of time and effort into our sewing projects, don't we? We don't want them ruined by something as simple as that. Anyway, that's everything I've been up to this week. Now I've told you about it all, I've realised that nothing actually went under the sewing machine for me. So we need to rectify that this weekend. I will get on with my 2 t-shirts and come up with a neckband solution. And I hope to see you to tell you about it soon. Bye. Not waste the original thing by ruining it. Ooh.